we are finally launching the iSchoolConnect test prep, where we will be assisting you with all important overseas education tests, be it GRE, GMAT, IELTS, TOEFL, or even SAT. Hi guys, welcome back to our channel iSchoolConnect. Like every week, we are back with some really interesting content all around overseas education. And this week, to talk to us about the US visa policies and practices, we have Jessica with us. This channel is what studying abroad dreams are made of. Do subscribe and hit the bell icon. Jessica is an attorney, a US attorney, and she specializes in immigration law. Thank you so much for being here with us, Jessica.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. The pleasure is all ours. Jessica, we know that the visa process, it's a very crucial stage for all students who are going through their applications right now, especially students going in for the 2021 intake. So we just thought that it would be pretty appropriate for us to catch up with someone like you and talk about some of the key highlights around the visa policies. I think we should start off with the first question, and that is, what makes a student eligible to apply for the US student visa?
Well, the primary criteria is that you have been accepted into a program of US study, and that can be some different types of study at different levels. So the most common student visa that people from abroad apply for and obtain is the F-1 visa. And that covers a broad range of academic programs in the United States at a variety of levels. The other two visas that are common for students to obtain, although not quite as common as the F-1, is the M visa, which applies to certain programs of vocational training that aren't really considered to be academic coursework. And another variant of the student visa is the J visa. And the J is used more in graduate situations or postdoc, as they say, for certain graduate scholars and graduate students.
All right, that's amazing, right? That's a quick highlight on all the different types of visas. Now, with regards to the different requirements or eligibility criteria, would you want to highlight something around that?
Well, while as a US-based immigration lawyer, I'm in California where, there's lots of Indian nationals, there's lots of people from around the world trying to immigrate for various reasons or to come and study at the universities in California and throughout the United States, but especially California. We see as immigration lawyers some F-1 students, J-1 students, M visa holders, but more commonly, the original chain is between the academic institution or vocational program and the student abroad. And nearly every university and program that invites international students has either a designated office, which is usually called something like the Office of International Student Affairs, or at least in smaller institutions or programs, a designated person who is familiar with the requirements of the visa process. And the reason for that is that in nearly all cases, the initiation of the right paperwork and the right relationship between the student abroad and the academic institution or vocational institute is the issuance of something called an I-20. And that is a piece of paper that covers the basic data about the student and acceptance to the program and the dates of validity, at least the initial anticipated dates of validity for the student's entry into the United States to study at a academic or vocational program. So that's really step one. So while I or other immigration law colleagues throughout the United States are happy to consult with or speak to students in India or in other countries, often we end up kind of at a dead end where we explain certain basic things like I'm going to try to explain today. And then our end of the conversation is usually, have you talked to the International Student Office or the designated representative at your institution? Because if not, nothing can really go forward until that paperwork is issued once the person has applied and been accepted.
Right, right. So I-20 is pretty much the first phase. And what happens after the I-20?
So after the I-20, there should be, so all F-1s at this point, according to the Department of State, are interviewed, when they first come over or first granted their stay. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be extensions through, through the school, through the institution, that there's not extensions possible beyond that initial stay without going back to the home country like India and sitting down for another interview. But the initial initiation is through the institution, and then there's a process to get to the point of an interview. Now, some things that are very important. So all of the consulates and embassies worldwide, I think all of your viewers know this, but just in case, because it is a little confusing, and every country manages their presence in other countries a little bit differently. So I'm not too familiar with the Indian Foreign Service, but it may be different than how the Department of State of the US government handles this. But they have a consular officer in all embassies that have a consulate function. And there's certain locations where you can be interviewed for those for different types of visas or entry to the United States in different countries. Some things that the students should know is that when you sit down for that interview, every consulate worldwide, so let's say that you had an Indian attorney that wanted to go in with you who was based maybe in India or in another country, but wanted to go in to represent you during the interview. Generally, that's not permitted, whether the person's an admitted lawyer in the United States or not. So one thing that's really important is that there is some thinking before, and maybe even that would be a good time to consult with a US-based attorney by Skype or Zoom or some other, or by phone, because there's some things that often come up there that are critical. So even if the school has issued the proper paperwork and the student can prove that the funds are available for their studies, there are some other things that can come up that can be pitfalls. And one of those has to do with immigrant intent. If you're coming to study, the entire focus of the interview needs to be that any questions asked relate to you coming, doing your program, and then leaving. Now, we all know that sometimes people are thinking in the back of their mind, but if this, if maybe the person has a girlfriend or boyfriend already in the States and is thinking, well, if this works out and I finish my PhD, then this, or if I finish my bachelor's, then we may get married and, stay there. You don't want to reveal those kinds of things. I mean, you never want to lie. You're under oath, and it is a US federal proceeding, even if it's conducted in an embassy or consulate abroad. But if you start talking too much about things that are beyond the scope of the student visa and the studying, the officer in many cases is required to deny the visa, because the way the US government and the US law think about these visas that aren't to immigrate is that it's literally like tunnel vision. You're just coming to study and complete your study. If you start mixing other things in through your statements under oath, the officer can, and in some cases is required, to deny you the visa, even though you have all the right paperwork and meet the income criteria to prove your studies funding.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, right? So to that, Jessica, a lot of times, when we are prepping students to go forward and talk to the consulate officer, we tell them that, remember that the only thing that is that is there with surety, and you can state with absolute confidence, is that you are going to study. What happens beyond that is not absolute, right? So any kind of confidence beyond the faith that you are going to study is going to be perceived as many things that might not be in the advantage of the student, right?
Definitely.
So,
and another example of that is not just the marriage scenario where maybe the person has a partner or a girlfriend or boyfriend in the States who is a citizen. But another example of that is maybe the student wanting to appear very ambitious, which is great, and many international students have to be really ambitious because there's so many steps to getting through the process, and getting somewhere like as far away as the United States from somewhere like India, which is literally other end of the world. So sometimes I've seen students also, they say, well, I'm going to go into the interview for my F-1 visa and tell them then that I have all these companies lined up that are going to permanently want to immigrate me, right? That are going to, I'm using that term, probably not grammatically correct, but I mean, complete the permanent process after my studies. That sounds great to the average person, and to anyone, it kind of makes sense. Well, yeah, you want to come off as you're going to contribute something to the US, you have things going on. You're not just going to come and study and then necessarily want to leave the US. But the problem with that is that then that also, those statements can be used to indicate immigrant intent. And the student visas are not meant for people that are looking to immigrate. So those statements need to also be left out. That's for another time when there's actually an application approved and on the table that might confer that benefit to that student.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Jessica, wanted to understand what is the current scenario like with the visa process? Is it any different than it was in the previous year? Are there any new policies by the government that has influenced it in any way? Any kind of benefits that are there for students? Would you like to share something on that?
Well, we all know that during the years of the Trump administration, there were several different travel bans, right? And some of those related to specific countries, some related to certain types of visas for temporary periods. The Biden administration has now reversed all of that, but what they haven't reversed was during the COVID-19 pandemic, originally there was a lot of flexibility given to foreign students for online learning programs. We're doing this interview online, right? And a lot more online activity is common, both for things like, interviews, studies, work meetings throughout the world because of the pandemic and the highly contagious nature of the virus. Initially, there was a lot of flexibility extended, but later in 2020, towards the end of the year, there were announcements and memos or policies posted on the Immigration Customs Enforcement website that made clear that certain students are that students cannot maintain their student visa status anymore with a totally online program, that a hybrid program or a mixed program between online and in person was possible for students, certain students, but was not available at all, even the hybrid for M1 vocational students or F1 students that were completing English language studies. So that's still quite restrictive. I checked again this morning. I keep waiting for them to modify that, but it's still up on the website. So I believe that it's still being applied as of today by the current administration. So what we're kind of waiting for is more shifts and more flexibility from the Biden administration, which were promised, overall in the immigration world. That was one of the promises of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that they were going to make things more fair, more humane, more opportunities, right, for immigrants, worldwide. And, student visas are just one piece of that. So I imagine we'll see more reforms. It's hard to say, though, how much flexibility they're going to build in going forward to student visas in terms of online learning as more people get vaccinated worldwide. But as of today, there's some flexibility still, and we're filming this in April 2021, but it's not totally flexible. So it's not like an F1 student could just go to India and complete their course of study totally online and be maintaining their visa, or even be housed in the prove that they're in the United States, but do a totally online program and be in compliance with the visa requirements.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just trying to understand from a student perspective. So, if I'm getting an admit, I'm getting an intake for fall 2021, which is just around the corner. Does that imply that if I go through the visa process and I do get the visa, um, would I be allowed to fly down to the country, or would there be ambiguity even then?
I believe that they are admitting F-1 students now that are issued the visa. Now, there's sometimes, things there, the Department of State lists, as of today, that F-1 visas are available generally, right? But they also make clear there's a way to do a student visa finder. There's a visa finder function on state.gov, right, which is a US-based Department of State website to try to find the best visa for different people. But there's a specific student visa finder where you put in kind of what type of visa you think you want or what you're going to be studying and what country you're from. And it will tell you kind of that, that this is available or that this is the best visa for you. Now, sometimes there's a code that comes up that is 999, which means that that consulate or embassy is only scheduling on an emergency basis. It will say this will take 999 days. What that means is they're not really scheduling those interviews. So I think it'll, it kind of remains to be seen if there's going to be further restrictions. The rates, are dropping in the United States. I imagine there's a lot of vaccinations rolling out in India and in other, we know in other countries too. But, as we know, this global pandemic has been full of a lot of surprises for everyone. So I don't think anyone should be surprised if there's further changes, between now and when they're trying to get on the plane. It's been constant change and confusion.
Absolutely. I mean, my personal opinion is till you actually reach the country, till you are settled down and safe, nothing is obvious, right? So, very important for students to keep checking on what the visa consulate has to say, what the consultants have to say, what everyone is suggesting, what everyone's advising students to do. So anybody who's watching this, make sure you're keeping tab on all the information that is coming in real time, right? So Jessica, we're almost towards the end of this session. Any closing thoughts, suggestions for students who are, getting ready for their interview and in general who are getting geared up to move to this fantastic country?
Well, I think that, just really follow when the Department of State before an interview sends out checklists, be sure you have each and everything on that list, or you can explain, like, for example, if it says, okay, marriage certificate and you're not married, then that's something that just doesn't exist in the universe. But if it says proof of income, for your sponsor or for you for the past year, don't bring 1 month of income. If it says a year, you need to do the homework, or the legwork before. They have those periods set up for a reason. And at the very least, there could be delays. If the officer just decides you don't probably qualify based on the information in front of them, there are cases where they can just deny it and you may be able to reapply. But you don't want, as a student, a denial, or really in any immigration process that involves the United States, you don't want a denial sitting in your file, right, or associated with you, because then the next officer, they're often doing several of these interviews, in one morning or one afternoon. They're just trying to get through it. And if the next officer says, "Oh, denial, wait, what's that? Does this person even qualify?" And already in their mind is the idea that you don't qualify. So it's really precise, and you need to be sure you're maxing out whatever they are asking you to bring, and that it's all filled out, that you have it organized, and that it's easy accessible for the officer. You want to make it easy for them to approve you, right? And not a battle, or that you're trying to find things in, in your files during the interview, because they just don't have time. And they sometimes will deny or at least defer, which can, under COVID times, defer can mean, long delays because they're already backlogged.
Absolutely, so important to be organized in the first place, and of course, keep your calm, right? That is something that will come off as the first impression. So, have a pleasant smile, be comfortable with the whole situation, practice a couple of times at home with your parents or with your mentors. Uh, Go through the interview. It's something that will last not more than 60 seconds or maybe not even more than 2 minutes. So it really is a matter of just being prepared with your documents and be prepared with what you have to say, and it should go smoothly, right?
Yes, definitely. And know all the dates, if they're asking you the dates that you're planning to travel, have that, if you're approved,
Right.
where exactly you'll be living. Some people will be staying at first with family, friends, or with relatives, or with, sometimes someone affiliated with their program before they can get into their housing due to dates of, and dorms are tricky right now because of COVID. So they know that, but at the same time, if they don't know where you're going to land, there's policies that say that they could have problems approving you, both because then, the US can't just have, people, that could be dangerous for the student as well. And also that puts the official in a position where they're being asked to approve you, not knowing exactly where you're going. So be sure you have that all lined up.
Absolutely. So many important points. This was absolutely, valuable information, Jessica. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with the students, with the aspirants. I'm sure you all learned quite a few important things right there. If you have further questions, you know the drill. Feel free to share all your queries, all your suggestions in the comment section, and we'll be more than happy to answer all of your doubts. Right. Until next time, this is Malvika signing off along with Jessica. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you, Jessica, for joining us.
Thank you, Malavika. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I'd be happy to come back and talk about more topics of interest to the students.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all ours. All right, then, until next time, this is us signing off on behalf of iSchoolConnect. Please take care. Bye bye.